I wound up actually dog walking for a writer who was represented by the agent who became my boss. So, one of those funny Hollywood stories of just right time, right place. About 2 weeks after I was dog sitting for her, she texted me and said, my agent's assistant just quit. You should apply.
Welcome back to Barely Scraping By. It's an exciting episode because when I was a little baby girl and I was started in the agency world, one of the first people I met was Molly. Actually, one of the first people I heard of was you. Like, you were on my radar before I even entered to the company. And I remember I teamed you and I was like, Molly, let's get lunch, because I was just feeling like a little guppy girl. And I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know what was going on and I didn't know about life. And I was just like, oh, I need some guidance. And so I feel like you were always like a guiding light, a good person to turn to. You just brought like stable energy to what felt like a very unstable point, because I was fresh grad and just like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And so there you were. And then now there she went, because she's no longer there and I'm no longer working with her, which sucks. But I wanted Molly on the podcast because I feel like you have a good perspective on the industry. She the huge jump from assistant to manager and leaving the agency and working there for a couple of years and then like getting your footing and then, skirting and doing something else with your time. She's chuckling. She's laughing at me because she's seeing me in podcast mode. But no, I think that you're someone who really meant a lot to me when you were there and helped me a lot. So I'm really happy to have you on and I'm happy that you're here. So thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. That makes me happy to hear. And I was honestly so impressed by you just hitting me up, because I think when I was like fresh out of college starting a job, I was so shy. I was not good at the networking thing. And then from the other side of it, I realized like it's flattering when people want to hang out with you and get your advice. I should have been asking people for that way sooner.
But it's good to see you. I haven't seen Molly since a minute, so I haven't gotten the whole lowdown on her new manager position and what she's doing in the industry currently. But before we start diving into what you're doing now, let's get into the past of what used to be. Ooh, I liked that. Good job, Claire. Pat on the back. Me validating myself out loud and everyone hearing that. Ooh, okay. Let's hear about Molly. Let's hear about why you jumped into the industry and what you're about, and then I'll start hitting the nitty-gritty questions that we can pull apart and get into it.
Yeah, well, to begin with, I was a dramatic child. No, I mean, I think I always liked writing as a creative outlet, but like specifically, apparently even at like 5, I was directing my little friends in plays and things like that. So I went to NYU, Tisch School of the Arts. Ever heard of it?
Yes, there's been a lot of NYU alumni on this podcast.
It was a good experience to be in the city, but I was studying dramatic writing. So I had applied to that program in high school and I decided to go to that program, go in that major. My concentration was writing for television. So set me up for what I'm doing today, which is managing television writers and directors. And there was kind of an evolution of goals there. I moved out to LA in 2018 and I got my first job at an agency. It was a below the line talent agency and I was the receptionist and floater, just answering phones and covering desks. And then COVID hit. I did a stint as a COVID compliance officer on a TV set, which was a terrible job, but a great learning experience. And after that, I went back to, in this business, you got to have your little like side hustles. So I was always nannying and dog walking in between when I was looking for jobs. And I wound up actually dog walking for a writer who was represented by the agent who became my boss. So, one of those funny Hollywood stories of just right time, right place. About 2 weeks after I was dog sitting for her, she texted me and said, my agent's assistant just quit. You should apply. And I found my way into working at an agency that way. And during my time there, I kind of just fell in love with representation and was like, I think this is going to be my path forward. But having such a background and training in writing, I wanted to be a little bit more hands-on when it came to development and the note-giving process. And I also had an interest in developing talent and working with writers who are earlier in their career. So as I sort of pieced together that I was really liking the work I was doing at an agency, I kind of noticed that what the managers were doing seemed a little bit more my speed. So from there, I just let basically everyone know that was my goal and met around and found a management company that was a fit. And now I work as a manager.
Damn, you really did manifest that. You said put that out there in the atmosphere and boom, made it happen. Before we dive into that, we have a little segment. We introduced segments this season called the Body Boot.
Okay.
And in this little Body Boot, there are some questions, and you're going to reach your little hand in there and snatch a question and read it out loud and then answer. And then onward we continue with your journey.
Okay. I'm going to really shuffle them up.
Some are fun, some are interesting, some are hard.
Have you ever lied to friends outside the industry about how successful you actually are? No, I was very open about the fact that I was an assistant for 3 years, so it's accessible to anybody to kind of get what we were doing. But yeah, I never glammed it up for people.
You never juiced her up. No. What you see is what you get, and people were still intrigued. Yeah. I love that. But going backwards, when you were at the agency, I feel like you became close, with the people around you and your boss, and you created him. Like, he became a mentor for you and a friend, I think, almost. Like, he became a big part of your life. Like, how did you go from just assistant, doing the day-to-day and the coffees and, like you said, then to, like, leaning on your boss and turning to him for direction and learning from him and, like, really getting that mentorship?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just luck of the draw. When you're working at an agency and you are an assistant to an agent, that's like a really close working relationship. And if you're working for a really great person, it can be a great job. And that's like probably the longest time I had ever been in a job. And I definitely would have moved on if I didn't feel like I was learning things and being supported. So yeah, I would say I came in and I, put my head down and tried to work really hard. And I was set up for success by having already had some previous agency experience at that below the line agency. So I was able to jump in and get into it right away. And yeah, I think, there are a lot of barriers to entry when it comes to the industry, but I do think once you are in a good position, it can be very much a meritocracy. So, yeah, kept my head down, worked hard, asked a lot of questions, tried to find ways to go above and beyond and be helpful. And I think it paid off in good relationships because people want to work with people who do that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like when you're in the assistant, you get in the rhythm, you just start, it feels redundant. So how did you keep yourself learning and every year, making sure you stayed on your toes and kept going above and beyond and didn't get caught in the boo, this sucks and I don't want to be here anymore and fuck this and I want to leave and like making sure you kept yourself going?
Yeah. I mean, part of it was just discovering that I really did have an interest in the work I was doing. I'm a pretty severely ADHD person and I don't know how I would have been able to keep my head down and focus in if I didn't enjoy it. But I'm also, I think, a pretty curious person. And so I think also maybe it's a little bit of a symptom of being a youngest child that I don't like when people are talking about things in front of me and I don't understand what they're saying. So
me too.
Yeah, it
I'm a
why.
Oh, why? Why is that? Huh?
Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? And what does that mean? And so, as assistants, you wind up CC'd on all kinds of emails about things that aren't necessarily your pay grade to worry about. I found myself reading every negotiation thread. I read every single contract that crossed my desk just because I wanted to know what it said. I wanted to know what everybody was talking about and what these calls where they're talking about different terms were about. So that kept me definitely learning the whole time, because it just felt like there was always something being said or happening in front of me where I had to be like, wait, back up. What was that? Like, what are you talking about there? So yeah, I think just always finding new ways to learn or filling in those gaps in my knowledge was helpful.
So now when you took all that information and you're like, okay, I don't want to be an agent, I want to be a manager. When did that like turn of the tides happen where you're like, okay, this is what I want to do, but not in this space? And how did you know you wanted to like, because people are always like, what's the difference between agent and manager? And what's the difference between agent and manager? And there's like the nuance between it. But honestly, sometimes I'm like, So it's like, how did you know you didn't want to do the agency world and you wanted to switch to the management?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there are a lot of factors. To start with, when I started at the agency, I was still thinking that I wanted to be a writer. I think one of the biggest things was that I had certain writers that I really admired their work, was really excited about working with. And some of them I brought into the department and the department would read and I got positive responses, but I kept hearing the response of, well, I don't think that person's ready for an agent yet. I think that person needs a manager. But they are really great. And probably, 3 years from now or when they hit a certain level of staffing, they would be right for an agent, but it's just not the right time. And eventually I was like, well, then I'll just be their manager. I'll get them to that point where it's time. So that was a really huge part of it for me, was wanting to really dig in and develop talent, because going all the way back to, my major at NYU, all of the writing classes were workshop style. So 7 out of 8 times I was giving notes and not receiving them. So that came very naturally to me. And as a manager, we'll go through sometimes even like 3 rounds of notes on a script before we bring it to the agents at all. So it's a lot more reading and note giving. And that is also something that I really have always enjoyed.
Incredible. And let's talk about the jump. How did you do that jump? Like, was it people within the agency that were kind of pushing you forward? How did you find the job? Like, how did you do such a, massive climb?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I did was when I decided for sure that that's what I wanted to do, I went to my boss, but I also went around to, maybe every agent in the department at some point, because I really respected and admired all of them and was just straight up, this is my goal. But then eventually one agent set me up to meet the guys I work with now. And he did say to me that they had been looking for a while. They're 2 guys who are a bit older than me. They had been looking to bring in a younger colleague, and ideally a woman to have that perspective. I happen to be both of those things, younger and a woman.
Bingo.
In addition to many other qualities that make me a great manager. But so I knew going in that they might be more open to taking me on as a manager right away. And a big part of it was just being able to show them that I had relationships, that I had the ability to identify good clients, to bring them in. That sort of just, I would say it was a combination of their support and just being in the right time at the right place. It just so happened that there was a management company looking for someone like me. So definitely took a process of meeting a lot and applying to a lot of jobs. And there were coordinator jobs and assistant jobs at management companies that I didn't get. But I kind of just felt like there are so many management companies out there that eventually I would find a place that was the right fit for me, whether that meant getting back in line and working up to it. I was willing to do that, but fortunately I didn't have to, because I wound up finding the right spot for me to just get started and make it happen.
Interesting. And so now you step into your new role and you're a manager and you're like, holy cow, I'm doing this. How was the imposter syndrome at the beginning, taking on this thing? Or maybe there was none, because you were ready for it. And how is the position going now? Like, you're the one making the calls. You're the one speaking up for your clients. Like, you have the power now. And how is that navigating that space that you're currently in?
people are kind. You ask for a coffee or a Zoom and they're willing to give you their time and be helpful, because I'm sure they remember all the people who've done that and continue to do that for them. So it was great. And, I didn't struggle too much with the imposter syndrome, almost just because I felt too busy to. I kind of just knew the things that I needed to do to start to get my business off the ground, and was laser focused to the point where, 5 or 6 months in, it felt like I blinked and time traveled. The year has gone by incredibly fast, just because I've been kind of, laser focused on reading all the scripts I need to read and introducing myself to the right people and getting my client scripts in their hands. But it was also really rewarding, because I got to sign some of the writers that I'd been keeping my eye on and had been excited about working with, and I got to start advocating for them and sharing their work with people and setting them general meetings and just getting them out there and a little bit more exposed. And so right away, I got that really rewarding feeling of, oh, I've sent this person's script that I love to someone. Oh, I'm getting this writer a meeting with somebody they wouldn't have met otherwise. So yeah, those little dopamine hits of feeling like I was helping my clients really just kind of helped me keep that momentum going.
Oh, I love to hear it. My clients. That just must feel so good saying my clients. Like, you have someone that you're helping and you're pushing them forward and you're bringing their career to a different space that they've never had before. And you're just like, hey, I'm helping you and I want to help you. Do you find that you're still writing on the side as an outlet? Like, how do you have your outlets outside the industry to make you feel sane? So when you do come in, I see my boss, he's a dad, he has kids, he has a busy schedule, he has his weekend plans. And it's like, but you still have to be laser focused during the week. How do you find that I think balance is maybe not always true, but how do you kind of juggle everything with the position and the outside Molly, so you could like come in and, get ready to work?
Yeah, I mean, that is still a struggle for me at times, especially when you're starting a new venture, right? I'm, as a manager, starting sort of a new business and trying to sign people and get things started. And it has wound up being really time consuming. Fortunately, I do love my job and I love reading scripts and talking about them and thinking about how to improve them. And I love meeting different people around town and finding out what they want to read. I love making those connections. So for me, my work-life balance and things I do outside of work is maybe not great, but also, I'm spending my time doing things I enjoy and find fulfilling. I have been, able to start writing a bit more, honestly, because for me as an artist, I really struggled with making art, but also the constant pressure to monetize that art. How am I going to sell this? How am I going to, make this the perfect sample to get me staffed or whatever? And taking that pressure off has made writing a lot more fun for me. I can just write my weird plays and not worry about how they'll ever make me money. But I can use the part of my brain that does have a good understanding of the market to aid writers who are a little bit better at striking that balance than maybe I was.
Interesting, because I just wanted to pick the brain of like, oh, what is it like to be on that side of thing? Like, how do you navigate the industry and keep your clients feeling, I don't know if secure is the right word, but how are you finding those little holes to kind of plug them and plug and chug and monetize and find that money for them? Like, how are you constantly rethinking and staying in front of the curve so you have people relying on you and depending on you? So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, it is still a hard time right now. We definitely are in a depressed market, but at the same time, I do think that there will always be a need for television and films. I don't see them going anywhere, but maybe the specific models of payment or the ways that entertainment or scripted entertainment is consumed might evolve over time. So one thing that I have been focusing on is trying to be creative about approaches. So not just doing the same things we've always done, but, we've started looking more into vertical dramas, which people might kind of dismiss as lowbrow. Just seeing where the trends are and what might be on the frontier next. And so trying to think outside the box in addition to the ways that people have historically been making money in the business, I think.
Now that you're in your new position and you came from the agency with the mentorship and the people who advocated for you, and it was not a large department, but larger than you're working in now, how is it going from that to your current position? And do you feel like you still have that mentorship, or how have you leaned on yourself more because there's maybe not as many people to turn to with, there's not as many perspectives at play. There's a smaller crew, smaller group, there's 3 of you, right?
Our company is 6 people total.
Wow.
Yeah.
How is that? Because you had, not just a TV department, but you had the other departments and the other assistant and all these personalities and all these perspectives at play. Like, how is it working on a smaller crew and relying on those people and trusting them fully?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate that my new boss is also great, and it's been great to learn from him. And we do operate really in a very team-based way. In some ways, my world got a lot smaller by going to a smaller company, but in other ways, my world really opened up. I'm not just meeting agents at one agency. Now, all of a sudden, I am getting to know all the other agencies all over town to potentially find business with them. And talking a lot more to executives around town. So in that way, it feels like the pool of people that I'm talking with and interacting with and working with on a day-to-day basis is actually like exploded in a huge way. And then I do still lean on those people who have been mentors to me when I need advice. I call them up and ask for advice. And I try to keep those relationships alive too, because I think when you find someone in this business that is good and authentic and you work well together, it's really important to keep those relationships alive. Because that is ultimately the fun of, film and TV and entertainment at large, is that it is just so collaborative on every level.
Okay, I know that you mentioned, like working in the space and creating the connections and continue networking and bringing people in, and I know that you rep Terrence. Watch his episode. He's incredible. He was on the last season. Love him, love him, love him. How is that repping, a friend and now working with him in that setting? I'm just so proud of him right now. Like, I literally just learned of this like 5 minutes ago, everyone, because I did not know Molly repped Terrence until today. What is that repping a friend and now you're his manager?
Yeah, I mean, so to start, I read his script when we were both assistants, and right away I loved the script he handed me. I just really responded to it and felt like he had the kind of voice and sensibility that I wanted to work with. And then he did a phenomenal job of networking his own way into a position working under a showrunner. So that also gave me the leverage to, show my colleagues at my new company that there is definitely potential there. And from there, I mean, it was just kind of a no-brainer. He is on the track to be a TV writer. I think he's immensely talented. And I had already noted his script, and it seemed like we were able to kind of talk about things the same way and that my notes were useful to him. So it made for a pretty natural fit. So it was nice to kick off already having sort of a rapport and knowing that I was going to be a fierce advocate for him. And then he's really held up his end of the bargain and has been turning around excellent scripts and material. So it makes it easy to get his stuff out there. I
am beaming. I am literally beaming. The fact that he was on here and now you're on here and it's like a full closed loop circle and you guys are working together. Like, I feel like a soccer mom, like where I'm just like, oh my God. But something that I asked you, now I'm just intrigued by, I remember a couple assistants have come up to you, even when I was having lunch with you one time, assistants like, hey, can I send you your script? How is the note-taking process for you? What is this feedback? And I know I've asked you this before, like, but I hear it all the time, notes, I'm giving notes. What are you looking for? And what is like in that note-taking process? And what are the things that you commonly give to your clients? And this could be for someone who's listening to this, who's a potential, wants representation and then is a writer. Like, what are you looking for to give to your clients? And what's a common thing that you're finding that you're like always giving notes on? Or I don't know how it really works. I've never properly given them. And you've mentioned that you have. So, skill of yours.
Yeah, it's a skill of mine. I would say it's a skill that I'm pretty proud of. And part of that does come, again, all the way back to NYU, where my major was studying writing very rigorously, almost entirely writing classes as my core curriculum, screenwriting, playwriting, and TV writing. But also they had a really strong emphasis on just story structure in general and dramatic reasoning, and a big emphasis on how to give notes that are helpful. Trying to find, you might call it like the note beneath the note. You don't want to be saying to a writer, well, I think the character should do this instead, or I think they should do this instead. And you want to get to the core of what feels like is missing. And there's also, there's two aspects to giving notes as a manager as opposed to just noting a script maybe friend to friend, because in addition to giving notes on the story itself and the execution of the story, there's also notes in terms of what our network's looking for. Then when it comes to the more creative notes, one thing I would say is like a pet peeve of mine is if I receive a script and it feels like they have never read a script or taken time to look up conventions, even just like slug lines and how you structure the page, act one, end of act one, act two, end of act two. But that is something that takes time to learn. But so the first advice that I generally give is to just read a bunch of scripts and also read about the rules and the standards for formatting scripts of different kinds. And another thing that I find comes up a lot is reminding people to just keep their protagonists active. For some reason, when we're watching stories, coincidences and things just happening to people is kind of boring. I think everything ultimately, going back to like the Greek tragedies and comedies, we want to see characters making choices, and we want the things to that happen to them to be a result of their choices. That also tends to be a theme in the notes that I give. Little things like that can help, the story feel more compelling and give you that catharsis that you're hopefully going to reach by the end of a good TV script or feature.
This is so cool for me right now because I'm having like the best time because I'm like got to see, and people always say like, when people talk about like, oh, we started out together and now they're this and here and here, and I'm like actively seeing it before my eyes right now because it's like, okay, I saw Terrence, now I'm seeing you, and now you guys work together, and now you're a manager, and it's like I'm actively seeing someone I worked with have a career outside of where we started, and it's just so honestly so dope. But before we end, the guest before you asked a question. And I'm going to ask you and you're going to ask the next guest. But first she said, what's your favorite way to decompress? Oh, interesting.
On my way home from work, I have a very specific car karaoke playlist. I have a really long commute, and I'm sure anybody who sees me in my car thinks I'm psychotic, but I find it a very good way to turn off my brain and not think about anything that just happened within those four walls or within my desktop computer, and I crank it up. And if it's an especially bad day, it might be a little bit more of an angry soundtrack. But that's my one weird little trick on my way home to sort of empty the day out of my brain, and also to make what can be like an hour and a half commute feel a little bit more tolerable.
But what is the question you want to leave with the next person?
What was the best mistake to learn from? Oh, wow. Have you made any mistakes that you really took something away from?
That's a good question. I guess you'll get the answer when you listen to my episode.
Ooh, that was good.
Hey, I am a little host. Molly, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for running up the stairs and getting right into it. We didn't give her a second. She literally sat down, and literally in probably a minute and 30 seconds we started recording, from when she put her foot to the first step and when she sat on the seat. But thank you so much for coming. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and being on Barely Scraping By. It's been a joy.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, my friend.